All right. Well, good to see you all. Welcome to the Attorney General's office. I'm joined today by Hopkinton Police Chief Mark Carrier. To my left, Hopkinton Police Detective John Ford, who's over here on my far right. AG Cold Case Investigators Mike Naylor, who's here in the pink tie. John McKay, my right, and then there's Criminal Chief Steve Dambrook and BCI Head Ed Troiano. And we are here today to announce felony charges in an alleged first-degree sexual assault committed over 2 decades ago. Specifically, today we charged Robert Zerwin, also known as Bobby Zerwin, with 2-degree sexual assault in 4th Division District Court in Washington County. As described in court documents we filed today, these charges arise from allegations that the defendant, on the night of January 5, using force and coercion, sexually assaulted a 45-year-old woman behind the Verizon building, 1084 Main Street in Hopkinton. As alleged in the court documents we filed today, at a time approximately between 7 p.m. and 7:15 p.m., the woman was walking along the sidewalk near 1088 and 1084 Main Street in Hopkinton when she was attacked from behind. Covered her mouth and, despite her fighting back, dragged her behind the Verizon building at that location. Later that night, when speaking to police, she described her assailant's voice as that of a young male. Behind the Verizon building, her assailant covered her face with her scarf, which obscured her vision and her ability to breathe. The woman alleged that despite her screams and struggling, her assailant pulled her sweatpants and underwear down and penetrated her vaginally, both with his penis and digitally. Later, during at Westerly Hospital, semen was recovered from a vaginal swab. The woman's assailant fled the area on foot. Alleged in court documents filed today, immediately after the assault, the woman sought help at a residence at 1088 Main Street, where a resident called 911. When police responded, they spoke with the woman and observed that she had a nose. I want to be clear, when the police we're talking about is, of course, the Hopkinton Police Department. Again, they observed that she had a small cut on her nose, a swollen lip, and a droplet of blood visible on her scarf. The woman was transported to Westerly Hospital. There, she consented to a sexual assault evidence collection kit. As alleged in court documents, the kit, along with other items collected from the woman, these items were submitted to the Rhode Island Department of Health for forensic examination. In March of 2005, Rhode developed a full DNA profile from the sperm fraction on the woman's vaginal swab and uploaded it into both state and national DNA databases. No leads to a known offender were generated from the databases at that time. However, in September of 2005, Rhode alerted investigators in Hopkinton that the sperm fraction DNA sample recovered from the woman assaulted in Hopkinton was consistent with an unknown DNA profile submitted by the Connecticut State Police in connection with an alleged unsolved sexual assault that occurred in North Stonington, Connecticut on February 8th of 2005. The alleged victim in that sexual assault described her assailant as a white male in his mid-20s, clean-shaven, 5'6" tall to 5'7" tall, 130 pounds, with dark hair. Despite the continued efforts of the Hopkinton Police Department and the Connecticut State Police, both alleged sexual assaults went cold and stayed cold for over 20 years. In June of 2026, this year, our cold case unit with the Hopkinton Police Department decided to take yet another look at this case.
The unit consulted a private laboratory that re-examines DNA in cold cases and developed a lead that the DNA contributor of the Hopkinton alleged assailant's unknown male profile may be a biological son of two specific people. Investigators subsequently learned that those two people had two sons, one of whom was Robert Bobby Zerwin. From DMV and other records, investigators determined that as between the two brothers, Robert Zerwin more closely matched the physical description provided by the Connecticut woman of her alleged assailant. Investigators also learned that Robert Zerwin had graduated from Cherahoe High School and was 21 years old in 2005. Investigators also learned that on January 5th, 2005, Robert Zerwin's address was 75 KG Ranch Road in Hopkinton, about 2 miles from the Verizon building on Main Street in Hopkinton, where the alleged sexual assaults occurred. This office's cold case investigators learned that Robert Zerwin was living in Woonsocket and began to covertly surveil him over the course of several days in June of 2026. On June 30th, 2026, AG Cold Case Unit investigators, Michael Naylor and John McHale, again with us today, while conducting surveillance outside of Robert Zerwin's Woonsocket home, observed him leave the residence and drive away. The investigators followed. At a traffic stop in Pawtucket, investigators Naylor and McHale observed Robert Zerwin smoking a cigarette, which he then discarded out the window and onto the street. Investigator McHale recovered the cigarette, still smoldering in the roadway. The cigarette was secured and delivered to Hopkinton Police Detective John Forbes, who delivered it to Rhode for forensic DNA analysis. On July 29th, 2026, just a few weeks ago, Rhode reported that its STR DNA forensic analysis of the recovered cigarette had produced a single source STR DNA profile that was consistent with the STR DNA profile obtained from the sperm fraction found on the vaginal swab of the woman who reported the sexual assault in Hopkinton. At his appearance in Washington County District Court this morning, 4th Division, the defendant was held without bail, pending a bail hearing or a status conference, now scheduled for September 2nd, 2006. And now I'm going to turn the podium over to Hopkinton Police Chief Mark Carrier, who again, I really am grateful to for our partnership in this case, and Detective Forbes. The teams really worked well together, as you can see, over a relatively short period of time to bring this cold case to the point where it is today with an arrest. I want to make very clear that the defendant retains the presumption of innocence, but I'm grateful that we have been able to take this first important step in the prosecution of this case. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Chief Carrier. Chief.
Thank you, General. Good morning, everyone. As you know, Hopkinton is a very rural community, and when we have an incident like this, it shakes not only the victim, but it shakes the entire community. As a chief, when I came in to office and we have these cold cases, we want justice. And I've worked with the detectives back in 2005 on this case. And when the case went cold, a lot of these detectives have since retired, but they still stay in touch and say, hey, how are we making out with that cold case? Because it stays with you. As investigators know, as prosecutors know, these cases take a toll on these investigators, just like it does on the victim, just like it does on the community. And when we reach a climax of making an arrest on this, it's very satisfying. It's a good day. It's a good day for Hopkinton. It's a good day for our community. It's a good day for the state and the Attorney General's office to make an arrest on this case, and I'm thankful for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. We'll take just a few questions. I may not be able to answer them given the posture of this case. I do want to thank, again, the cold case unit led by Ed Troiano. The team works really hard. Jess Valella and Steve Murray, now with the prosecutors assigned to that unit, I'm really grateful to the General Assembly a couple of years ago when we ran into some roadblocks in getting this unit stood up. Then Speaker Sicarci and Senate President Ruggiero, with of course the support of the current Speaker and the current Senate President and the entire General Assembly, saw the need for our unit to focus in on these cases, to bring the kind of attention to them, meaning the kind of law enforcement investigative attention to them. We can solve these cases when we work in close partnership with our local municipal partners by having a group that is hired to do these cases and do them only, while the rest of the office focuses on the 6,000 cases which we'll be charging this year. Juggling resources here has been a consistent theme. So with that, I'll take any questions you have, but please recognize and understand, and forgive me if I can't expand upon what I've said about this particular case, given that we have just begun the prosecution. Yes?
When and how did you deliver the news of the arrest to the victim of this crime?
Mm-hmm.
What can you tell us about the reaction?
Well, I think it's hard to speak for someone who experienced what I described as we alleged in the court documents today. But I think that it's safe to say that she is grateful that we've made this first step. And we did make contact with her, of course, before we're speaking to you to let her know in advance of the arrest to know where we were in this case. I mean, it's one of the challenges of the work. So much of it has to be done surreptitiously, as was done here, the covert surveillance that investigators McHale and Naylor did for nearly a month. You're really balancing the need to keep it secret so you don't spook, scare off someone that you were trying to surveil and investigate, because many times you're trying to get a sample, and you obviously don't want people to know that they're under surveillance. But the conversations were, I think it's safe to say, emotional.
In person or on the phone?
Oh, they were in person. Yes.
And this morning?
No, they were before today. Yeah, they were before today. I don't want to get into the specific dates, but the team sat with her and let her know where we were in the case.
I'm interested in knowing more about this. Was it a private DNA company that ultimately led everyone?
We talked a little bit about sort of the techniques that we're using, and the team feels strongly that to the extent those techniques are discussed, that we'll discuss them in court and not out here. I will say that the team has really been trained here in the office over the last several years. I mean, it takes some time for these cases, because they rely on laboratory and other testing and other analysis, it takes some time to get to the point where you have identified someone to target. Then things move very quickly, as I think you heard from my narrative today. But the actual step that you're talking about, and it's an astute question, is one that I think we'll let play out as the court proceedings go forward. It could be in a context of a bail hearing in just a couple of weeks, or it may be in the context of a trial down the road.
Would you say this example would give hope to other cases or other?
Oh yeah, it does. I mean, we have, I always get ahead of the team, as Ed knows, because I'm very excited about the work, and I'm really proud of the unit and all of the staff, the victim services staff that works with them and, helps us, how do I put this, helps us understand how to approach a victim in this context. I'm really grateful for that. I would say that it should give victims hope. We have, round numbers, a dozen of these cases that are well underway. I think we'll see the fruits of that labor in the near term, hopefully a few more before I leave office in January. But I'm confident that after I leave office, that this unit will continue to deliver results because they're just really strong. The prosecutors are really strong, and the investigators are outstanding. You know, investigator McHale was with Warwick for a long time. How many years, John?
24 years.
And then Mike Naylor was in Newport. We worked with him when I was in the attorney's office. You know, that municipal police background really helps. You know, I don't want to speak for Chief Carey, but I think we were talking before we came in here, that understanding from the investigators, recognizing that it's not our case, it's a joint case. We're doing it together with Detective Forbes. The teamwork is really strong, and you know, over the course of my career, I've really found that when the teamwork is strong, you know, results quickly follow. And so my hope is, to get back to your question, I know it's a long answer, is that yeah, this should give hope to other victims in cases that have gone cold. You know, one of the challenges is there's so many of these cases that go cold. It's why we ask for the unit. You know, when your team of 70 or so prosecutors are trying to keep up with the amount of cases that are coming in. And look, we built the office out. We've added prosecutors. We've added people to the civil side. And the caseloads keep growing. I think some of that is because cases aren't moving as quickly as I'd like for a variety of reasons. But it really is hard to juggle the kind of caseloads our everyday prosecutors are juggling. And have the time. You know, you're at the courthouse. I mean, I used to do this. I was in that job. You're at the courthouse, you know, from 9 o'clock until 3 in the afternoon, and then you come back and, you know, you got to get ready for the next day of court. But you really wish you could sit down and you know, focus on these 2, 3, 4, 5 cold cases. It's really important that we divide that labor in the way we have. And we've already seen some results. Today is the first step in this important case, and I'm confident there will be others that will soon follow. Yes?
The defendant facing any charges in Connecticut in that case you mentioned, and is he being considered a suspect in any other unsolved cases?
Yeah, you know, the investigation continues, and I'll, of course, let the Connecticut authorities, you know, speak for themselves. I do want to thank the Connecticut State Police, because certainly there was partnership here, given what I described earlier in our allegations, and also the Woonsocket Police Department. That was also very helpful as we covertly surveilled the suspect and now the defendant in this case.
These are 2 incidents that happened within the span of a little more than a month. Was he known, this suspect, known to police for any other charges throughout his life since that time?
Yeah, you know, I don't want to get into sort of his background because, again, he has the presumption of innocence, and whether or not, if that evidence exists, whether or not that is something that would be relevant to a prosecution, we don't know yet. So I don't want to go there, and by saying that, I don't want at all signal that there is such a background. I just want to be very careful about what I say today. Yes.
You described a physical description of the defendant, but he has a brother, and so how closely does he resemble his brother? What can you say about how
Yeah.
he the brother at?
Well, I think. Let me just say this. That, as we allege in the documents, you know, certainly we could have focused on both, but there was a reason to focus on this particular person because this particular person, this defendant, more closely fit the description. And certainly once the testing came back, if it had come back differently, then perhaps the investigators would have moved in another direction, perhaps with the brother, or, you know, or if not there, somewhere else. But that, you know, I don't want to engage in too much speculation here. You know, the investigators felt like this particular person was a person to focus on, recovered a piece of evidence from which to get a DNA sample, did so.
But that's the Y chromosome. The brother has the same chromosome.
Well,
Okay.
so let me just say this, that DNA evidence is complicated, and I'm not suggesting at all that you don't understand it, but I will say this, that I don't fully understand it, at least not outside the courtroom context, so I don't want to go down that lane. Suffice it to say that the evidence here, including the DNA evidence, give us not only probable cause, but confidence that we should bring a prosecution. That said, These are allegations, and the defendant is entitled to the presumption of innocence. But one thing I've learned over the course of my career, well, I'll just stop there. I've learned a lot. and one of the things I've learned is sometimes when I want to say more, don't. So I think I certainly don't want to jeopardize anything that pertains to this prosecution. I'm sure that some of the questions that you are asking astutely may come out in a hearing should there be one going forward. Are there other questions? Anyone? If not, thank you for coming, and I wish you a good rest of your day. And I want to thank the team again. Thanks very much.